Welcome back, everybody, to the Even Your Dynasty show.
We just got breaking news in.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Even Your Dynasty show. We're back with another video today to talk about the report that came out. One was by Susan Slusser, who reported that the Giants have spoken with Zac Gallen. There's interest there in a short-term deal. The other one came from Jon Morosi, and I think Andrew Baggerly may have commented on it on the Glenn Kuiper show the other day with that the Giants have some interest in Kyle Schwarber as well. So we're going to talk about both those guys, the potential fit here, if it makes sense, and kind of my overall thoughts on either of those guys, which kind of interesting timing. These come out in the wake of the whole, they're not going to pursue Tatsuya Imai, they're not going to pursue long-term deals for pitchers. They kind of doubled down on that. Obviously there were some comments from Buster, Zach, and Greg Johnson back during the GM meetings. Andy Baggerly talked about that in his article. I kind of went off on how the team, kind of does this to the fans every year. So if you guys want to see some frustration in the rant, that's yesterday's video. But today we're going to kind of look forward and, look at these two guys as potential options for the team. So before we get into that, though, if you do enjoy the content, please do hit that like, hit that subscribe. We're trying to get the channel up to 2,500 subscribers by opening day. Like as I said yesterday, we're just over 2,100 now. We will be doing our live show tomorrow. So check that one out. Dan and Ricky will be joining me, and we're going to try and get back on our normal weekly Friday night live show. We took obviously last week off due to the holiday, and we're going to try and get that rolling again. So I'm going to kick it off with Zac Gallen, who is entering his age 30 season. He's projected now. I'm going to go off the MLB trade rumors. Contract projections are usually in the ballpark of what these guys end up signing for oftentimes. He's projected for a 4-year, $80 million contract, which if you just look at his 2025 numbers, you'd think some team is absolutely insane there. And we're going to kind of run through his last few years, what kind of looked like it went wrong in 2025, what went well in 2025, and what why there's some indications that he's in for a big bounce back going forward. But going over his last few years, 2025, he had a really bad year. He started 33 games, threw 192 innings, had a 4.83 ERA, a 1.26 WHIP, 8.2 Ks per nine, 3.1 walks per nine, 1.5 home runs per nine, and a 44.4% ground ball rate, which is about 61st percentile. That's something that you can tell is a thing that Posey and Manassian like, is guys that don't walk a ton of guys and also get the ball on the ground, because they're trying to build an elite defensive infield. They obviously have third base locked up really well. Shortstop, Adames was a plus defender there. Casey Schmidt could make a lot of improvements this season. He talked with us about trying to, slim down a little bit to help his range. Now the Giants just hired Ron Washington, who's an infield guru. I'd expect with Wash now here, you're going to see a lot of improvement on the infield. So yeah, the team's going to want to get guys that get the ball on the ground. And then kind of looking back at past seasons with Gallen, 2024, 28 starts, had 148 innings, 3.65 ERA, 1.26 WHIP, got the ball on the ground 46.2% of the time, which was 71st percentile. 2023 made 34 starts, 210 innings pitched, 3.47 ERA, 1.12 WHIP. Got the ball on the ground 42.3% of the time. That was about 48th percentile. He was close to league average. That's his worst number there in the last 4 years. Actually finished third in the Cy Young Award voting in the National League that year, behind Logan Webb and Blake Snell, who ended up winning. And then in 2022, 31 starts, 184 innings, 2.54 ERA, 0.91 WHIP, 9.4 Ks per nine, 2.3 walks per nine, 0.7 home runs per nine, 46.7% ground ball rate. That was also up in the 70 something percentile. Another really good year for him. I think he finished top 5 that year in Cy Young voting. So this is a guy that let's kind of look at the positives. Starting off with for last season, some of the good things that we saw last year. He went 6 innings or more 21 times in 33 starts. Also had 15 quality starts. So it wasn't all bad last year. Obviously, he had a lot of blowups. He gave up a lot of home runs. We're going to go into kind of why that seemed to be the case. But there was positives. Also, his last 2 months last season made 11 starts, 65 innings pitched, 3.32 ERA, a 1.08 whip. Wasn't striking out a lot of guys, only 7.5 Ks per 9 during that time, but he got the walks down a little bit, 2.6 walks per 9. Home runs were still higher than he'd want, but the ground ball rate went up a lot. So it was 1.1 home runs per 9, but 47.4% ground ball rate. So pitching to contact a little bit more last season, and started having success when he started getting the ball, more consistently on the ground. So there are some positives there. Now, other positives: fastball, changeup, slider. As far as like things like the velo, the spin rate, shape, all that, I'm not like a perfect expert there, but you look at what they did last season, and they're just in line with what he had in 2024 and 23 and 22. Like his stuff has not really changed there. Um, they actually those pitches performed better for hitters last season than they had in 2024. If you look at both the batting average against and like a lot of the expected numbers, they were actually better pitches than in 24. Now, what went wrong though for him? Last season, he was getting less chase, less whiffs, and a big part of that is his knuckle curve was way less effective. This is a pitch that's been one of the most valuable curveballs in all of baseball. It was one of the most valuable pitches in all of baseball in 2024. And it went from that to a negative value in one season. And you look at what, you know, had all the numbers surrounding that pitch, and nothing really changed much. There's nothing that indicates why that pitch suddenly is so ineffective other than just his command. And the Table Setters podcast on X, they actually did a whole um, thread on Zac Gallen and kind of why he should be getting more attention, or positive attention, I should say. And they really broke this down where it just seems to be his misses weren't as good. So it's a little bit of a control issue on the knuckle curve last season, which is a little odd to say for a guy that has been kind of known as a good command guy. Him and Merrill Kelly over in Arizona, they were always just guys that didn't walk a lot of guys. They had really good command. And it's not that he was throwing it for a bunch of balls or anything like that. It just he was missing more in the zone. And it's one of those that, maybe get that a little bit more on the edges, get that down below the zone a little more frequently, and he'll go back to having a lot of success. But you look at what hitters did against him, hitting the ball harder last season. Um, they hit 9 home runs off his knuckle curve in 2025. If you go back on his previous 4 seasons from 21 to 24, he only gave up 9 or 10 home runs on his knuckle curve in that 4-year stretch. So really ballooned last season. I think there's a lot of indications for positive regression from Zac Gallen next season. I would not be shocked at all if he goes back to being a mid-3 ERA pitcher going forward. And at a 4-year, $80 million projection, I don't actually hate that deal. I wouldn't really want to go much above that personally, but if you can get him on 3 or 4 years for 20 million AAV or less, I think you're getting good value, because the reality is this team is going to need reliable starters that eat up innings. He's had one somewhat major injury in the last 4 years, and it was more of a recurring injury, and that was the hamstring issues in 2024. That's what held him back to only making 28 starts. But, the other 3 seasons of the last 4, 31, 34, and 33 starts, 184, 210, 192 innings. That's really, really good. If you compare that with Logan Webb, who's obviously he's kind of the premier inning eater right now in Major League Baseball, and then you have Robbie Ray give you 100 and, hopefully 80 innings ish next season, you're in good shape with your top 3 in your rotation. And then, will the team go out and get another back end guy, a guy like Zach Littell, maybe that can pitch both in the pen, out of the rotation? Who knows? That could be a potentially solid fit for the team, but Um, I think they need at least one reliable arm, a guy even of Gallen's caliber. Now, other negative for him, he is a qualifying offer player. It would require the Giants to lose a second round pick and $500,000 in international signing bonus money for 2027 signing period. And is it ideal to continually sign qualifying offer players? Not particularly, but also if you're getting them on a 3 or 4 year deal without the opt outs, I have no issue with making that with doing that deal. I think that's actually fine. It's when they did it like what they did with Chapman and Snell, where they signed these guys on essentially 1 year deals with opt outs, and then they both, Chapman would have opted out. They ended up extending him, so that one you don't really mind as much. But like with Snell, they lost their third round pick and $500,000 of money, and they let him walk after a year. They didn't even trade him to try and recover some of that value. That's where I have more issues with those. So overall, I like the fit. Maybe it would make more sense to go after like his ex teammate Merrill Kelly without the QO and on like a 2 year deal. But I actually really like what Gallen's upside is. I think at his best, he's shown that he's, a solid number two, probably in a perfect world, but he's shown he's a really good pitcher. And I think we've seen the worst of him. I think we've seen the best of him. I think, maybe you don't get the very best version of him. I just don't think you're going to get the 2025 version of him either. I think that a lot went wrong, and I think there's a lot that can be, whether it's tweaked or fixed. I don't think it's that difficult of a fix for him. So really like that one. Now, Kyle Schwarber, he's the other guy. Jon Morosi floated that one out there, that the team might have some interest in Kyle Schwarber. Now, he's going into his age 33 season. His projected contract's 5 years, 135 million. Susan Slusser suggested that the team might be more open to long-term deals to position players that are going to help with the offense, because she talked about, the pitching's was fine last season, which to an extent it was, but also pitching needs a lot of help if they're going to rely on all these young guys. And a little bit about Schwarber, and I'm going to just kind of briefly talk about, I'm not going to go through all his numbers like I did with Gallen, because I actually don't think the fit makes as much sense there. But he's kind of a 3 outcome hitter. It's like extra base hits, strikeout, walks. He's kind of your analytics dream for a lot of these guys. Hit 56 home runs in 2025. Some of the good, he's had a lot of success in Oracle Park, 95 plate appearances. He's hit 244 with a 908 OPS and 7 home runs. He has 11 extra base hits in that time. I think he also has 3 doubles and a triple. So has had success in Oracle, and he has the power that you're not really as concerned with in Oracle Park. And I know last year he took what felt like just kind of a lazy swing on one and he put it in the cove. Um, he's got that kind of power where you're really wouldn't sit there thinking, oh, he's going to lose a ton in Oracle. He's probably a 40 homer guy, but he's also 33. That's usually the time when guys start to trend downward. And if you give this guy 5 years, I've got a lot of questions on what that's going to look like in years 3 through 5 of that deal. He's a questionable fit as a whole. He's a DH or a left fielder. You look at the Giants roster right now, you've got Rafi Devers, Bryce Eldridge, and Elliot Ramos in left, which, yes, I'm not going to sit here and say Kyle Schwarber is not an upgrade over Bryce Eldridge or Elliot Ramos. That's certainly not what I'm getting at here. But if you're going to do that deal, you're going to have to put him probably in left if you're going to move Ramos, which he's a horrible defender in left. I mean, everybody's pissed off at Ramos for his defense. Wait till you put Kyle Schwarber out there every day. I have questions there. Or you're going to have to DH him, which there's questions about whether or not Rafi Devers is going to stick at first base long term. So by the end of that deal, Rafi might need to be a DH. So you're kind of putting yourself in a pickle there. Also, if you're going to trade Bryce, if that's the route you're going to go, that's a massive risk. If Bryce ends up being kind of what you're hoping you get out of Schwarber for a year or two, that's going to be a big L that you take on that whole process. And I get it. You're going to get something back for Bryce. You're probably trading for a pitcher. I just think it's risky if you go that route. I don't personally like that. I would rather stick with Bryce and try and build up the roster otherwise. especially given their ages. Bryce is only 21 years old. You have the potential to have a guy that can help impact the middle of your lineup for a long time, and not just, hey, a couple of years we'll have this guy and may or may not go down fast. I'm not a fan of this move, but it would, like I said, it would indicate that moves are coming, some trades are coming, and you're going to upgrade the roster in other ways. So it is a creative way to build up the roster. I just don't think it's going to do enough for you in the short term to justify the possible long-term implications of doing that specific deal. So that's kind of where I fall on these two. Love to hear everybody else's thoughts. We're going to, like I said, we're going to jump back in on our live show tomorrow. We'll probably talk a lot about the coaching staff hires. The Ron Washington news broke just a little bit ago before I recorded this, and we'll definitely talk about the coaching staff hires. I love that hire, and I will really go into why I like that hire a lot and think it's a really good one. And overall, this team is building up a very nice coaching staff. So credit to Vitello, credit to Buster and Zach for helping make it happen for them. I think they're going to make big gains as far as wins and losses go just off of the coaching staff. And yes, I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear that. We'll dive in on that. I will explain myself further detail tomorrow. But yeah, I think it's gonna help the team quite a bit. So go Giants. Appreciate you guys all for stopping by. We will see you tomorrow night.